I think it's safe to say, and I think we'd all agree this, right, chums, that the bottom line is it doesn't matter what Meghan Markle says, every story has to come back to her. You have to make sure if you're a guest on her show, whether it's a Netflix cooking show or indeed her latest podcast, well, really, it has to be relatable so Meghan can say, yes, that happened to me. We saw that with a medical condition, remember? I think 2 episodes ago, suddenly that was the headline. Meghan decided to overshare, but of course there was no record of this in Prince Harry's rather dramatic book, all about, of course, what happened during the birth of either one of their children. But somehow Meghan managed to find a story that she could hook herself into. Well, now, apparently, according to a very well-placed source, well, they're kind of concerned about Meghan's latest, shall we say, memory about her time when she was first starting out, particularly at Northwestern. Has she created something of a racist problem? As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much as ever for taking the time out to join me. Yeah, I don't know what you feel, but I just sort of feel every story has to just come back to her. It's never about whoever she's interviewing, and this is the problem, Even when she was interviewing her good friend Meghan Harriman, if you remember, suddenly she had to get it back to the fact that her child, Archie, well, he wanted a camera just like Meghan's, but it was too expensive, but that was his favourite. As if a kid would know a brand like that. You just say, I like the camera. But no, we kind of all knew what Meghan was really hinting at. She wanted a certain thing and she wanted it, right? Now, what's happened over here on this latest batch of interviews with Lemonada? She's interviewing her personal hairdresser, who seems a really charming lady, in fact, and I like her story. Clearly, she's worked very hard to develop a business, but you didn't necessarily know much about that when you listen to the podcast. I read most of that up online, and I admire her for getting that far with whatever she's doing. It's not easy getting business off the ground. But you see, Meghan, of course, is supposedly interviewing people about being a founder of business. We haven't learned anything. What we learned was that Meghan, I'm quoting here, said that, if you were a non-black person, you didn't understand what she was doing as part of her student days. And basically she's relating a story all about herself, once again, literally about how to straighten your hair, particularly if you're a lady of colour and you want to have straight hair. Now, having worked in this industry a long time, I know many different techniques that those particular ladies do, and there are many. I think I mentioned this before on the show, how Beyonce told me how she used fabric conditioner to straighten out some of her wigs, if they got overheated, and indeed her own hair. And I'd never heard of that before. I said, really? You do? And I thought, could you use that on natural hair? Of course, I didn't try it because you'd be smelling like fabric conditioner, but there you go. But what was fascinating, back to Meghan as ever, she pointed out that, people would say there was a burning smell and non-black students wouldn't understand. Now, what's fascinating is Meghan has been in the public domain for many years and seemingly wants to talk about her black heritage, 43% Nigerian, you get the picture. While she was over in Nigeria, it was suggested, and I know this for 100% fact, that perhaps she might want to let her hair go more natural in order to connect with that particular community, as one could understand. This was a definite no-no. Now, it would make sense, wouldn't it, going over to that particular country and, just letting your natural curls come through. Meghan has never, ever been seen, ever since she became mildly famous, with her own natural hair. Now, whether she doesn't like it, doesn't think it suits her, doesn't agree with her, or simply doesn't want to connect to her heritage, either way, this would have been a wonderful opportunity to say, this is what I do. But clearly, Meghan likes to change her look, as she says, on various things. And this particular story just points out once again that, well, according to her, we don't understand women of colour. Well, some people might say, why do women of colour, like you, Meghan, don't want to, well, embrace your natural heritage hair, even for just a short time, perhaps in Nigeria? You can't have it both ways. After all, this is meant to be about founders. What have we found out so far? Clearly, you don't like your own natural look. Anybody else agree? Neil Sean, Kensington, London.